Hello YouTube! We are on the Real Programming channel. It is about HTML and CSS. My name is Andrei. This is our 60th lesson. I greet you. We will talk about main wheel back at the long. Enough theory about divs. Let's get one into the long page. Remember, we are trying to get all the elixir elements into a group, and then we are going to style it to make it look like the elixir handout. So open up your long.html file in the chapter 10 long folder, locate the elixir elements, and then insert opening and closing div text around them. Here is opening tag, and we are given it an ID of elixirs to identify it. Remember, we just showing a snippet of HTML from the entire file. When you open long.html, you see all the markup for the page. Okay, let's look on Sublime text. Weekly elixir specials. Here is the opening tag, and we got given it an ID of elixirs to identify it. Remember, we just showing a snippet of HTML from the entire file. When you open long.html, you will see all the markup for the page. And here is the closing tag div. Taking the div for a test drive. That was easy, wasn't it? Now that we got a more structured page, let's fire up the browser and see how it looks. No change at all. But that's okay. That div is pure structure, and it doesn't have any look or default style in the page. Let's say the div is just a block element, and you can apply the style as you wanted to it. So once you know how to style a block element, and you know how to style a div. And brain power exercise. Remember, the goal here is to restyle the elixir content on the page so it looks like the handout. Before we took a detour to learn about divs, we were trying to figure out how to get a border around the entire set of elixirs. Now that you got the div and long.html, how would you go about adding a border? Now that you have a div around all the elements in the elixir section, the fun begins. You can style it. The first thing we want to reproduce in the elixir handout is a border that wraps around all the elements in the elixir section, right? Well, no. Now that you actually have a div element that wraps around the elixir section, you can style it and add the border. Let's try that now. You'll need a new rule in the long CSS to select the div element using its ID. Open up your long CSS file in the chapter 9 folder and add this rule at the end. At the end of your CSS file, it selects the elixir's div elements using its ID and adds a thin solid border in our favorite aquamarine color. Marine color. I type this and here's make it go my dots then on the style dots solid and void color 007 E7E. That's one. So okay, at the end of your CSS file, it selects the elixir's div element using its ID and adds a thin solid border in our favorite aquamarine color and over the border test drive. After you edit the CSS, save it and then reload your long HTML file. Here is the border that you just added to the elixir's div element. You added a visible border to this div, but it still has no padding and no margin. We need to add that too. Notice that the border goes around all the elements inside the div element. The div is a box like every other element. So when you add a border, the border goes around the content, which is all the elements in the div. Adding some real style to the elixir section. The weight of the elixir's handout is narrower than the rest of the page. There is a background image at the top. The main heading has paragraph text is black, while the drink names are red color that matches the red in the logo. The text and images are centered, and there is padding on the sides to add space between the text and the border. The line height of the paragraph looks a lot more like the default line height for the page before we changed it in the last chapter. The font family is a sans serif font, just like the body font, so we don't have to change that. Remember that the div element and all the elements nested in it inherit the font family from the body. This link is aquamarine. So far, so good. We found a way to get that border around the entire section. Now you're going to see how to use the ID div to customize the styling of the entire elixir section independent of the rest of the page. We obviously have some padding issues to deal with because the border is right up against the content. But there is a lot of other stuff we need to work out too. Let's take a look at everything we need to take care of. The game plan. That's a lot of new styles, so let's get a game plan together before attacking it. Here is what we need to do. First, we are going to change the weight of elixir's div to make it narrower. Next, we'll knock out some of the styles you're already familiar with, like padding and the background image. We also play with the text legend, which you haven't seen before, and then all we've got left are the text line heights and the headings colors. You're going to see that you need to upgrade your CSS selector skills just a bit to get those changed. That's a lot to do, so let's get started. Working on the elixir's weight. We'd like the elixirs to be quite narrow, so it looks like the narrow handout menu at the long, about 1/4 the weight of a typical browser window should be about right. So let's say you set your browser to 800 pixels wide, that would be about 200 pixels. You set the weight of padding borders and margins, but you've never set the weight of an element before. To do that, you use the weight property like this. The weight property lets you specify the weight of the element's content area. Here is where I'm specifying that the content weight be 200 pixels. We're setting this on the elixir's div, so the content in the elixir's div will be 200 pixels wide, and the browser's layout rules will work to fit all the elements nested in the div within that weight. Give this a try, open your long CSS and add this rule to the button. Test drive the weight. Next, save the CSS and reload the lounge.html file. You'll see the elixir section get much skinnier thanks to the weight to give it. The weight of the content in the div is now exactly 200 pixels. There is also some interesting behavior you should check out. Now all the content in the elixir's div fits into a space that is 200 pixels wide. It doesn't change even if you make your browser window really wide or really narrow. Try it. 200 pixels. Compare the behavior of the div to that of the other elements. When you make your browser window wide, the paragraphs automatically expand to fill the weight of the browser. We'll talk about that more in a sec. Brain power exercise. Can you resize your browser's window to less than the weight of the elixir's weight? Store deep. Some browsers won't let you go that narrower wheels. If you can go narrower, compare the text in the elixir's div with the rest of the text on the page. The other paragraphs resize themselves no matter how wide or narrow you go, but the elixir's div never gets narrow or wider than 200 pixels. I was wondering how that weight property relates to padding and margins. Is it the weight of the content itself, or the entire box including the padding and margin? The weight property specifies the weight for the content area only. To figure out the weight of the entire box, you need to add the weight of the content area, to add weight of the left and right margins, the left and the right padding, their border width. Wait, don't forget that you have to include that twice the border weight, because there is border on the left and the right. Totally weight, left margin right, border weight, the left padding right, and the right padding weight, border weight, right margin. Okay, well then how do we specify the weight of the entire element? And there are no dumb questions. We'll talk about this in the next lesson, and this is our 6th lesson over. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel, please like, share with friends, comment. Eat bananas, chocolate, and nuts. Drink more water for the effective work of our brains. Bye.